Hey there, and welcome to our Unreal Engine live stream. It's a bonus Tuesday stream that we don't often get. And with me right now, I have Jacek Materna, who's the CTO of Assembla. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey guys, how is everyone doing?
So today we're going to go over. Today's stream itself is about some game jam tips and tricks. And Jacek, you're going to talk a little bit about Perforce and SVN and sort of how you can use those or their differences, right?
Yeah, totally. So, just a quick recap. Assembla's been with the Jam for a bit over a year now. I
Yeah.
think we did a little bit of action before, primarily around Perforce. But what we're finding is there's a lot of game studios that are Subversion users too. So, both of them are super popular, especially with Unreal. You guys do a great job of supporting both of those on the platform.
Oh, well, thank you.
And yeah, absolutely. So we both we're both doing a lot of stuff in and around Subversion and our partner Perforce to make sure that obviously the jams are going off with a hitch, and so far it's been going pretty good.
I know a lot of the teams have. I'm starting to get the flood of emails where people are like, "Hey, I want to sign up for my Assembly server or my account rather, and get started." They're all getting ready for the jam, and we couldn't do all that
Yeah,
without you all. So,
yeah, you bet. We're more than happy to support it.
so I've got your presentation pulled up. If you'd like to dive in.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, let's go to the next slide. So just a little quick background about myself. CTO of Assembla. So we're in the code management space for cloud. A lot of gaming studios come to us, indie shops, big studios, various. We've got a lot of actually AR, VR coming our way. It's pretty exciting to see what's happening in that space, in and around UE4 especially. Some cool projects that we've been participating with. Um, I'm a major gamer, currently cranking on Destiny 2, but my time is super limited. Flying around, two kids, it's like impossible to find some time. But when I get 15 minutes, it's a good game for that. Um, and then I've always been, like I said, always been close to what Unity and UE4 and some of the other engine developers have been doing. Started, with the old the Dooms and the Unreal tournaments and stuff. So it's been a long time kind of hobby of mine, outside of work, so to speak. And one thing that's super cool that we're seeing with a lot of even the projects that the Jam is working on, and just studios in general, is that graphics have gotten so good. Uh, the pipelines are so easy to work with. Now you're getting almost like movie-like experiences in your games, and so that kind of intersection of video games and movies is pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's really
And
incredible to see what people are doing these days.
it's unbelievable. I'm surprised every time there's a new studio that comes out that they have like two people in the studio, and they say, hey, we need to run some data on you guys. Here's what we're doing. It's amazing what two people or three people can come up with. It's truly it's just completely different than it was 10 years ago,
Oh, absolutely.
and so we're pretty excited about it. Next slide. So again, just I consider UE4 the gold standard in engines. There's other engine platforms out there, but I always come back to UE4 as having the best end-to-end workflow management. Supporting the artists, the devs, the tech animators, the guys working on rigs, and you guys are really pushing the envelope, and also building games off of it. So it's pretty cool. And like I said, what we're hearing from our studios is that they're saying the same thing. When they go to other platforms, it's typically for other reasons. Maybe they're a little bit too small or whatnot, but they're always kind of aspiring to get their games developed in UE4. So you guys, like I said, keep doing what you're doing. It's been great.
I know they're working hard, so.
I know they're working hard. So yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, just flip to the next slide quick. this is the question that I pose all small teams that are thinking about, should I build my own server? Should I manage my own cloud environment for my studio? Or should I really double down and work on the games, focus on the content? So I pose this question, what if you can do it all in the cloud, super secure, high quality, et cetera? And the answer to that is these days you can. So if you flip to the next slide, the platform that we built, Assembla, is purpose built for cloud. Mm-hmm. And Perforce and Subversion exclusively are really kind of the go-tos for our studios. There we go. Yeah. So, if you're looking for Subversion in the cloud, you're a team who's used to Subversion or want like really an easy to use repo technology to get all your art in there, all your assets. It's super easy. And we're spending a lot of money actually taking Subversion, moving it to the cloud. So a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline, which is going to be really important for studios. And then we're a really exclusive partner of Perforce in the cloud. So we provide kind of managed services, super crazy uptimes. So if you've got studios with teams all over the world, or you aspire to be studios with teams all over the world, the cloud just makes a lot of sense. A lot of times you're a small team and you're trying to work with partners outside in different countries. You may be farming out art to Europe. You may have technical stuff in China, et cetera. So being able to have everybody kind of jump in super quick without having to get into IT and all this really weird kind of VPN security stuff is really what's super fun, super exciting for the studios. Like they just don't have to spend a lick of time on IT because they just want to build cool stuff. So we're kind of in the business of making that happen. And it's kind of our staple. So if we go to the next slide, is really kind of the meat of the 15-minute little tee up. I wanted to kind of get into some more shop talk around, what's the difference between, these kinds of technologies. Mm-hmm. And it's really kind of sometimes it gets into a religious debate around, Git versus this versus that. And, we're not really in the business of kind of dictating what solution you have to use. There's certain situations where you may need one or the other, but we like to kind of present the facts of what's the current state, especially in and around UE4. And so really, Subversion and Perforce are really kind of the gold standards around integration with your engine. Subversion focuses a lot on like cloud capabilities. We have like this pretty awesome web app where you can do a lot of stuff in the web app as well as when you're working with UE4. And Perforce has we don't have the same functionality in Perforce, but what we're able to do with Perforce is kind of scale it out really big. So if you've got like 5-10 terabyte repos, which teams will eventually get to, Perforce still is the gold standard for those giant ones. What we're hearing though is obviously it's a pretty pricey product. So it's one of those things where it may not be the starting point, but it may be somewhere where you end up as you grow bigger. And then you've got Git on the right side, and Git is still, it's a great technology. It's predominantly for software developers, and they've got it comes with a lot of cool functionality. And I know the guys over at Unity and some other folks are really trying to push Git hard to support large files. They're calling it Git LFS. My perspective is that it's still a little too early. I mean, I wouldn't jump on Git as kind of a starting point. Really evaluate why you would use Git over the others. You know what I mean? Don't just follow kind of the websites or the Quora forums. I mean, you got to really take a look at what's going to work for your team when it's 2 people, 5 people, 10 people. And that's what we do. We talk to studios that come in all the time, and we help them kind of crawl, walk, run into these technologies, and it may be that they start somewhere, they end up somewhere else in the future and stuff like that. So like I said, we're more than happy, like I said, help you guys, or the folks on the jam if you got other questions too. We're always around. We can answer some of these more technical kind of repository technology questions, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome. And we appreciate how much you all, or how active you all are in getting responses to technical questions and all that. You guys are always super on the
Yeah,
ball, and it definitely helps the team. So
yeah, our support team's super great. They're all over it, so it's exciting. And then the last slide is I just wanted to throw up a good friend of ours, John Romero. So we've had John Romero for quite a long time. He's built a number of games all the way through production on Assembla, and I love this quote that he has used, where their company, and they're working on some cool projects, stuff I can't even talk about, stuff he can't even talk about. But they use Slack, Google Docs, and Assembla to get it done. And whether it's Subversion or Perforce or combo the both, they do all their stuff on the cloud, and they're a pretty small team. I mean, some of their studio games are about 8-9 people. That's with production, art, tech, and they're releasing or working on some, I'd say triple A level games, whether it's UE4 or whatever engines they're going to be using for their projects. So again, we've helped John kind of grow as his business scales, and like I said, that's kind of where we fit in, and we're super excited.
that's great.
Hmm. That's it. That was my little 10-minute little jam elevator pitch.
Little spiel. Yeah, no, I know a lot of the teams really love using it, and it's definitely very handy, and a very, very important part of game development is version control, and it can really save you when people like to delete files or get rid of files.
Yes, yes, happens all the time.
Yes, we all love to do that. So, um, any last words of wisdom before we jump into our next segment?
I would just say, the folks that are producing the content, the folks on the jam and the developers, I keep pushing the engine developers and the cloud providers like Assembla, get your feedback in. So, if you've got something that's really a pain in the ass around workflows and how things should be done, you'd be surprised where it could just be one piece of feedback. We take that in, or Epic would take it in, or others take it in. So I would just say don't be shy around like providing feedback, because ultimately we all win if we're making everything better, right?
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope your the remainder of your time in San Francisco goes well.
Absolutely. Great for having me. Thank you.
Uh-huh. And then we'll be right back with Slapunas and DennyRocketDev, who are going to talk about overall game jam tips and tricks. So we'll be right back, folks. Hey guys. Can you both hear me?
Hello. Yep.
And Denny? Oh.
Oh no.
He tricked us. Can you hear me, Denny?
Oh, he's in the chat.
1 second, guys. There's always some technical difficulties.
Jammers would know.
Well, he hears us. That's a good start.
I don't know. It's on his end. It says his microphone's turned on, but I don't hear him.
Let's see. He may be jumping ship on us. Well, real quickly, I'll give them a moment to kind of look at that. But so we've got both Slap and Denny on, and hopefully both of them will be able to talk to us a bit about some of their game jam tips and tricks. They've won a handful of our UE4 jams in the past, and so Slap, you tend to do art, right?
Pardon?
You're an artist?
Well, yeah, I'm the animator. I'm working a lot on the kind of like technical animation side as well, and level design, a bit of everything, except I'm not doing any source code.
All right. And then...
Hello, can you hear me? Test.
Ah, there you are.
Hello, yes.
I switched to Firefox. Chrome
We
didn't
did
work.
it. Oh, Chrome.
Okay.
Tricking us. And then, Denny, do you want to talk a little bit about what you normally do as far as the teams?
Well,
Or the game
I'm a
jam?
coder, and jokingly, my title would be Screen Shake Engineer, I think. One of the things I do.
Screen Shake Engineer, I like that. It's a good title. And so they've prepared a lovely little presentation for us, sort of to go over, you know, how to best help you succeed as far as a game jam, at least as far as their personal experience has been. So would you all like to take it away?
Yeah, let's start it.
Sure.
By the way, how about a slide control? Just gonna show thumbs up and you're ready to move.
All right.
All right. So as you can see, well, this is our presentation and it's a tips from our personal experience. So take it with a bit of salt, but actually this is our personal experience. It may not work for you exactly, but it worked for us for more than 15 jams, and it's definitely grinded in. Definitely works for us. So this is an overall view of our usual game jam schedule. And when you see this preparation area, so this is not something we do before a jam as much as like actual jam content is concerned. This is actually as gathering a team, testing if our Perforce works, getting everything set up, including buying supplies and like actually preparing physically for the jam rather than actually doing anything. And then later on, we're just going to expand all the other sections right quickly. So next slide, please. Right, so as probably the colleague before us mentioned about the source control, it's probably one of the most important things that beginners need to get down to. So pick one of the source control system you can and test it. Test it if it works, prepare it early before the jam, make sure everyone has it and use it. This is the most important thing you can ever have. It will speed up your work tremendously. And this is one of the first keys of success to working in the actual team environment. Next slide. Right, next, supplies. This is also self-explanatory. Stock up on things, like especially for a mega jam, which is 1 week long. Make sure you have a lot of stuff: water, candies, sugar, even toilet paper, everything. Your teammates will hate you if you're gone. Like you'll actually create morale issues if you disappear for a few hours or even more. But yeah, ideally you should have everything ready. This is like a real raiding scenario. Like for ultra hardcore gamers, it's the same logic here. Be ready, be on time, be there when you're needed, and make sure you have everything you need on the spot. All right. Brainstorming. So now when the theme is announced, you guys are going to have to sit down and think of what game you want to make. From our personal experience, this might not work for you, but it definitely works for us. Spend at least 4 hours generating ideas. Like literally sit at least 4 hours. This is like a bare minimum. And you're going to come up with a lot of ideas. And ideally, you should throw away like a first half of them right away. Like you might come back to it later after like 2-3 hours if you can come up with anything actually feasible or anything sounding fun and like exciting. But whatever you come up with initially, you should probably discard it because chances are everyone else in the jam already came up with it, and there's going to be like 50 or 100 games that are literally looks like a ripoff of each other, just because people actually just went in with the first idea that popped in their head. So don't go with that. So you came up with the idea, great. Now cut it by half. Literally, none of us go by half. That's the minimum, bare minimum. You're gonna need to cut it off because, well, you won't be able to have everything you come up with. You're gonna have to like shrink it down to the tiny, small possible version of a game you can never imagine, and that's what's probably feasible in the game jam. So yeah, don't get too much attached to your idea, but be ready to cut it.
Yeah, I feel like oftentimes it's very much a scope creep. Like everybody wants to do all the things, and you start out with this like big grand idea, and they're like, okay, well, really, we can do this, and then like this is what you get done. Like it just keeps shrinking, and you
Yeah,
gotta be careful.
it's a very painful process. Like that's where you actually get to know your team, how well you click together.
Right.
Next slide.
Oh yeah, game design. Okay, this is also one of my favorite things to do. In the beginning, I just thought that game design was actually just another way of saying game development. I didn't even realize there was a whole science behind the thing. But yeah, what you have to do once you have your idea figured out, you want to find the fun in your game. Just do everything, just keep prototyping and get to the stage as soon as possible. You want to get the fun in this game because no amount of polish will salvage a game that has no fun. This is as soon as possible. You want to have a game that's fun and playable.
How
But,
early in a lot of your games do you
don't get
think
this-
you've been able to get there?
It's the next point actually.
Oh.
Actually, it's not always possible to find the fun, not in a short amount of time, because every fun game for us, or at least for me, gets born in a pile of terrible, unfun games, and they need those unfun games as fertilizer to kind of grow. So don't get discouraged. Just still finish your game. You will still learn a lot. You will still have fun. You will still, have a good experience. You can look back on and say, "This is where I learned this," or "This is where I got this from." It's kind of like herpes if you think about it. Just way better. Just way better. Okay. Next slide.
Okay.
Okay. Again, game design is a huge topic. I mean, you can literally study game design for a year and still only scratch the surface. But if you have to kind of compile it down to one sentence, this Sid Meier quote is a pretty good one to look at. So it says, "A game is a series of interesting decisions." And well, basically, if you have issues finding the fun, you should ask yourself, does my game present the player with interesting decisions? And if not, you can ask yourself, how can we get interesting decisions in? And just before I go into an example, and the last slide, we have links to a talk by Sid Meier where he just goes over this very quote and explains what is a good decision, how to get fun using these decisions, all that. So if you're interested, you can click on the link. I think we share the presentation, right? So you can find it in the links.
Yeah, all
If
the
not,
links
just hit
will
me
be
up in
at the
Discord
end
or
of
Twitter. And yeah.
Oh, you want to share it at the end, or do you want me to pull
for-
it up?
It's more like we should just publicize all the
Not
links and
as for
sources
something,
for-
if somebody's interested, they
people
can
actually
just
okay.
go and watch it
expand
after the stream.
if there's anyone interesting. Right.
Yeah.
You're done, right? Yep.
So just for one example, Fortnite is a pretty popular game right now, and pretty much the whole battle royale genre is pretty popular. And I just want to go into this and tell a bit or look at it with or through the lens of decisions. For example, in Fortnite, you just start out flying in this bus, and your first decision will be where would you want to deploy, where you want to jump, and then you want to ask yourself, or actually the game is very good at presenting you with those decisions that you just have to make. Where you want to land. Do you want to land somewhere where there's a lot of loot, but there will be also a lot of people? That's a high risk, high reward. Or if you want to land somewhere else in the outskirts where it's low risk, low reward. And while you're flying down, you can look around, you already see other people, and you have to make the decision. Do you want to land there now, knowing that you will have to fight immediately? Or do you want to turn away? And those games are very good at presenting you with those decisions. This is arguably one of the reasons why those games are so popular right now. Another thing would be, for example, you hear gunshots close to you, and you have to ask yourself, do you want to go there? Take the risk of a battle, but also maybe get the reward of getting the loot, or do you want to run away? And basically, a game at the end is always the sum of your decisions and a bit of skill and mechanical skill, like aim and movement factored into it. But yeah. Okay. again, reminder, if you want to, it's a huge topic. Game design is extremely important. So if you want to watch the video, the link is in the last slide. Yeah, super important. Okay, that's it.
All right.
Next slide.
Right. So back to the beginner tips. All right. Save your work. This is really important. Your game will break, bugs will happen, and most importantly, don't just save your work as like one thing. Have multiple iterations. Like if you're using Perforce, where automatically saves in multiple iterations of most of the files you keep uploading, that's all right. But on top of that, have your own backups, because you'll come up issues where your build doesn't compile, something breaks, you can't even find the bug. It'll take you like hours or days to actually find it. And the easiest way is just to revert to a previous version was actually properly functioning. This will definitely happen like half of our jams. It's unavoidable. No matter how good of a coder you are, this will happen. So make multiple iterations of your saves. It's really important. Next. Right. Now, you also don't forget to test the build. It's also quite important. Like, play your game, play a lot. Like, ideally, after each iteration and each major change, you should play it to the finish if you can, or do the level completions. Check your collisions. Make sure that your characters, if they manage to clip through a floor, will add kill Z volume so they don't end up falling for eternity and then never start the level. And try to dig out all the crashes you can find. But that's the most important thing. Most of the bugs, well, they don't matter, but the ones that crash your game, that's really vital to hunt down early. Right. Next slide. Right. This is another one. Right. Take a lot of screenshots and GIFs. This is like something that is most people forget to do, even intermediate users. Like, do it for yourself more than anything else. You'll have great memories after you finish the jam, and then you look back a few years afterwards. But you will also have something to post on the social media rather than just like a broken builds and complain that your game is not compiling. This is the most fun thing for people to look at. Like, it definitely take screenshots and record GIFs. You won't regret it.
It's always, and we always encourage people to share your progress. Like we have the hashtag UE4Jam hashtag, and then we like to see your progress and see what everybody's working on. So as you're going through and developing your game, if you have silly or fun shots, we'd love to share that and see how you guys are doing. So
it's the most fun part of all the game jams. Literally, everyone sharing the bugs. So you can have the best talk in every pub ever.
Sometimes the bugs are almost the gold of the game itself. So
exactly, it's the whole spirit of a game jam. Now, skipping to our more intermediate jammers. So this is not your first rodeo. That's great. You come even want some. That's great. But we still encounter people, even in our teams, that forget this most vital thing, which is package your build. And package it every day. I'm not meaning like literally at the end. Do it every day. Make sure it compiles. Make sure it works. Like we had one game jam we actually won, but our build didn't package. We actually had to revert to the build that packaged, and we lost like half of our levels and everything. That was horrible. But even we encountered this issue. So I'm telling from our own experience, just package your build every day. Just make sure it works. It's a very important step. Right.
There you go.
That's the very truth of game jammers. That's actually the whole spirit of it. You will have bugs, and yeah, you can't fix them all. And honestly, it's easier just to make sure that to pretend that it's a part of a gameplay. And you cover it up if you can, but if you don't, just leave it there. I mean, it's understandable you'll have bugs, and people are expecting you to have a broken build. In fact, it looks more genuine when the game is not functioning properly. It's more fun. And just have it as a part of your game, as a feature. That's what game jams is all about. Right. Now, this is something from our own experience again. Might necessarily be applying to you, but it's really important. I can see that.
Hold on just a second.
I'm being pointed out as the Twitch is dead. Like, yeah, the stream is dead.
Yeah.
No. When did it die?
Just a moment. I think it was the last slide, so if you want to
Let's go back.
cover some of that real quick.
Are we all live now?
Yeah, we're up. Sorry about that, folks. I think it's
We're back.
Halloween. We're being haunted by random ghosts here in the studio, and it's giving us all kinds of fits today.
All right, I'm not sure how much we missed. I'm just going to repeat the slide all over again.
Yeah, I think
So
it's
the
this one
most
here.
important, the most overused quote in the game dev history. It's not a bug, it's a feature. Well, that's the spirit of the game jams. Like, don't try to fix all your bugs. If they're not game breaking, if they don't crash your build, just have them. You can mask them, you can hide them if you need to, but have them there. People like it, people understand it. No one expects your game to be flawless. In fact, it goes along with the spirit of game jam. Just have it there. It's a feature after all. Right. Now, sleeping schedule is something that we have broken so many times, and well, this is going to come from our personal experience. I'm not sure if it's going to work for you, but especially in the game jams as long as the week ones, I would recommend you to actually properly sleep the first 5 days. Like, actually sleep, and avoid using energy drinks. You can have your morning coffees, but really don't overdose on these things. Like, you really want to be productive and like pull all night on the final 2 days. That's literally the most important time, and you want everyone in your team to be there to actually morally support each other, help hunt down bugs, and do all the critical things. Like, if you're gonna push it through for the first 3 days and you're gonna take energy drinks, you're gonna crash. Or even better, you're gonna have opposite sleep cycles from one of the coders or your artists, and you're gonna have like one person sleeping while the other is working, and then you just have the only thing to communicate with each other is just a bunch of drafted notes. That's quite frustrating, and it damages the team morale. And it's ideal that you guys are actually maintaining a healthy sleep cycle and work productively as you can. That's about it.
Yeah. Sleep.
Yeah. Don't overdose on energy drinks, really. Now, this is also a very game jam related thing, especially to coders and blueprinters. Right. It's obviously understandable that nobody's going to have a quickly made code or blueprint nodes that are actually tidy and neat. No one expects you to do that. But make sure you comment it at least. Like, you'll have to come back to it later after 2 days and you won't know what the hell is going on. Like, you're going to spend an hour trying to figure out what you did. And this is just for yourself. Imagine if there's 2 coders or 3 coders picking up each other and have to fix each other's bugs, and they just can't navigate through this. No networks are a nightmare. No networks without comments is like just absolute disaster. Just have comments at least. That's just the best tip I can give you there.
Yes.
Next.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
Denny should pick it up.
Yeah, it goes a bit against what we just had, but you just want to get stuff done as a coder. You don't want to just make the best. There's always a trap of you can fall into trying to be the superstar coder and make the best code ever and write frameworks and all that stuff. But the most important stuff is just to get stuff done. Just get stuff done. If you get a playable prototype as soon as possible, you can make it fun. Don't waste time writing frameworks. Well, you also want to write clean code, but those things aren't exclusive. You can make both. Get stuff done, make it clean, the least amount of code. It's easy to fix. 3 nodes, then fixing a whole framework that you probably don't even need. Okay, next slide, please.
Mm-hmm.
If you work in a team, this one is super important because it always happens that somebody makes a tool or something. Just on a side note, you shouldn't make tools. If you make tools, you're doing it wrong. If you make tools, you don't have enough time to make the game, actually. But that's another thing. If you make something that a level designer, for example, has to place, make sure they know how to use it, what the values do. Just give them a little GIF or a little bit of documentation, how to use it, how to place it in a level, what values do. It goes a long way, because if you don't do it, your stuff will probably not get used or not used properly and stuff breaks. So make sure if you make those things, those blueprints, those little actors, make sure that everybody knows how to use them.
Do you feel like you have
Okay,
time
next.
for documentation? Is that better than just like reaching out to your other teammate and asking them a quick question on how to use something?
Well, if you have a very communicative team, sometimes those things just get flooded, and you kind of have to make sure that if you want your stuff to get used, a minimum of a couple of GIFs. So this is how you use it if you want to use it.
We're
Please
gonna
look at
address
the
that.
documentation. You don't have to go all the way and write a whole documentation page or something, but
Yeah, we're gonna address this process in the
What'd you
later slides, how we do that. Yeah.
All right.
okay.
All right. So the most general thing is the project management, and this is very relevant when you're starting with a new team. It's not saying you must have it, but we recommend totally to have a test run. Like us ourselves had a test run every jam for like first 7 jams. I think we always had a test run of 2 days when they actually pick a theme of previous jam and we created a game from scratch and try to practice a whole pipeline. And it's not just for beginners, it's also good for intermediate users, just because it actually gets you down from being rusty to actually back to a productive state. And you're just, once a jam starts, you just hop in, you know what to do, everything is perfect, you just save time that way. But for beginners, the most important thing of this is to actually to get to know people. Like, you're gonna find out 4 random people you never like talked with before. Chances are you guys gonna have a very different level of experience on everything, like in terms of how you understand the engine, how you work, how you stick together, even documentation alone. So test run is the best way to, first of all, establish a proper workflow, then find out who's strong at doing what, and you can distribute the tasks accordingly. And ideally, you'll find out the people you actually like to work with. And well, don't end up like, this will avoid your frustration of having to quit a team or split ways just because you just can't stand the guy. So yeah, I totally recommend this for new guys, but it's applicable to everyone. Right. So when it comes to actual project management and relaying of your documentation, as Denny mentioned before, we tend to use the tools like Trello or Hack and Plan. Whatever you use, like, you can have different platforms if you wish, but this is what we use, and it really works for us and helps to push a big load on our communication. So first of all, we take our casual chat like Discord or Skype, whatever, we keep it individually away from this. So whatever we spam, the memes and everything, that is great. I mean, it helps with the jam, it keeps the morale up and everything. But everything important, game jam related, including our ideas, documentation, notes, bugs, and everything we find out, we put in Trello. Like, this is like makes everything easier to keep track of and allows you to spot the bugs. And anytime a coder needs to say like, oh, okay, what needs to be done now? He doesn't need to go in the chat and ask that. He just opens that and sees there's a list and like a checklist telling you what needs to be checked. So it's ideal that you're actually using one of these platforms and just list everything in there, including the notes and documentation of how something has to be done. And when you do that, like, we tend to split everything into 3 categories. Like, we call it must, should, and could. And yeah, you divide every single feature in your games by all these 3 things. What you must have in the game jam for your build to at least be playable and enjoyable, what you should have before the end of a deadline if you have time, and what you could have. It means if you did literally everything, there's nothing else to do, then you can add these features just to make it extra crispy, extra polished, extra shiny and spectacular. But yeah, it's really important that you structurize your whole game planning into those 3 categories and follow it through. It'll make it way easier to cut features down if you run out of time.
Yeah, you've
Like,
already made that decision ahead of time, so it makes it easier. So you're not trying to make
all
decisions
right,
on the fly.
that's the thing. I had a slide on it, my bad. Yeah, so this is essentially how it looks like. Essentially, you will run out of time. It's inevitable. It's like there's no way you're gonna make a game which you actually set out to do unless you put yourself super low expectations, which is real unrealistic. All the game jammers we worked with have like ideas of like grandiose MMO games and stuff like that, and obviously we never made it, but everyone starts big, everyone dreams huge, and eventually you have to cut it. So make sure that you set out the important things you must cut early.
Yeah, and one of those tips there is, you know, this is a very important part, because by the end of the game jam, you know, you've put a lot of hours in working on this, and you're going to be tired, and you're just not going to have any dangs to give, you know. And so if you've made those decisions ahead of time, you don't have to worry about making those decisions later. You just go down the list and knock them out.
Mm-hmm. This one is very until everyone is seeing the Discord complaining about it. Right, so this comes down to when there's a scenario where there's 3 people trying to access the same level, and we're using the source control, so only one person can lock it in at a time, and somebody wants to do level layout, somebody wants to test AI pathing, and someone else wants to do the lighting. And I've seen the people actually many times in Discord like actually saying, nothing to do, code locked in the level, I'm just going to chill out here. Well, in reality, don't do that. Make your own sub-level or make your own duplicate level and do your own part in it and merge it afterwards. It's far more efficient that way. You won't gonna have to wait in the queue. You won't gonna waste any time. There's like actually no reason for you to ever wait and do nothing. There's always something you can be doing. Even on your separate level, you can test every mechanic you can want on your individual levels and merge later. Like, this is really a poor excuse for not being active. Next slide. Right. Now this is coming to the art pipeline. This is from my own personal experience. It's one of the older jams I did as well. Right. So as a animator or rigger, try to reuse your rigs and animations to as many characters as possible. Like these examples you see, they're all using the same skeleton and animations. Like they look like different characters, they're scaled abnormally different, there's different proportions and all, and they look broken on most of those animations because I tried to cover that. But ideally, for all the time efficiency, you want to reuse everything you make. Like it's way faster that way, it saves you a lot of trouble, and it still looks good enough for game jams. Like nobody even notices that. So try to do that. Reuse the stuff, it's really good. Next slide. This one comes for the people worried about optimization and the visual look of their assets, especially the environment props and everything. Well, for that, I can tell you just like use decimation tools. It's the quickest way to do that. And what I mean about it, like this is only applicable to non-rigged characters, non-rigged assets. Like I'm not talking about characters that has to deform, has to have proper topology for that. I'm talking about all the crappy props and everything, anything you can dig out from. Even if you have like 100K vehicles or whatever, just use decimation tools. Use it relentlessly. Like just cut it down to 10%, to 5%, and just drop it in level. It'll look fine. It doesn't have to be perfectly optimized, but it will work fine. Like, so yeah, decimation tools is the way to go. Right. Now this is one that are coming character diversity. Like we found out that the quickest way to make characters, and it's actually very effective for game jams, is to actually use props as accessories and just drop them on sockets on the character and just use recolors. It's very, like, there's very little scenarios when you actually need to make unique character models in your game jams. Like, it's very, like, unless you have a very specific storytelling purpose for a character to have a unique model, that's the only case you would make it. In any other case, just make recolors and not props. It works 90% of the time. Just like foolproof. Just do it this way. Way quicker, way more efficient. Right. That's another tip for beginners. I've seen a lot of people, especially with 3D modelers, the ones who work for jams, they tend to make their environment sets and prop sets merge together. Like, for example, the guy decides to make a scene on the living room, and he makes like a coffee table with props attached to it, like a vase or a TV remote or whatever. Everything attached to the table merges into a whole mesh and imports it to a level. That's actually a very crappy way to go, because their argument for that is it says it's less draw calls, but it's not actually an ideal thing to do. I would say, I'm going to tell you the opposite. Don't merge anything. Have every single prop, every single thing you made as a separate asset, drop it in a level as much as you want, pollute it to hundreds and thousands of assets in the level. It doesn't matter. Computers these days can handle draw calls. They can handle thousands of it in the level. In fact, if you do it this way, you're screwing yourself up, because you're creating a massive meshes, but light calculation becomes way difficult to calculate, and it actually eats up performance that way. So use a bunch of meshes, don't merge it. Just make your level a mess of assets and props, and it will look brilliant and it'll work better. Next. And that's another one when it comes to the meshes as well. It's very relatable. Avoid movable lights. It's another common beginner's mistake, especially when testing the levels. They really hate baking it, and they just use bunch of movable lights. I've seen like about half of the game jam games have suffer from insanely low FPS just because they use this. Like they have plenty of movable lights and they don't bake anything. For real, you only need realistically 1 or 2 movable lights in any type of level. You'll never need more. Everything else can be solved with static lights, and everything can be baked in. Like avoid it as much as you can. This is the biggest FPS saver you can ever have. Another artist thing, maintain consistency. It's not 100% relevant to game jams. Like, I've seen game jams that are absolutely inconsistent and they still look all right, but ideally you want your game from artistic point of view to be consistent. I mean, ideally you have one person doing the modeling, you have a person doing texturing, and the third person animating it, so everything looks consistent and from the same universe. I mean, there are cases when there's a main character looks like a AAA character, the NPCs look like a 10 times decimated version of that, and the enemies are just cubes. I mean, it could work for your game, but it's not consistent, and for me as an artist, it's just like, it's just painful to watch at. I guess it's just a personal preference that way. Right.
Screen shakes. Add screen shakes to your game. No, I'm just kidding. Polishing is super important. We most of the time try to finish our game actually at halftime, so we have the rest of the time for only dedicated to polishing it up. It's so important. I think a lot of the game jam games we play, they just don't polish the games at all. I think they just make the game keep adding. They don't put a point where just now it's cut what's not done, cut what's not working, and then just start polishing. It's super important to do that. Iron out the game breaking bugs, get some game design stuff fixed, add screen shake, of course. I can jokingly we actually when we made this thing, I can talk an hour just about screen shake, but it would be a bit excessive. There is a great video actually. It's called Choose It or Lose It. It's also in the last slide. They go over how to actually polish your game using choose and add game feel. Just add party effects, add sound effects, add screen shake, add post-process, and all those kind of things. So go watch the video. It's only 15 minutes. It's a bit of bad quality, but it's the best video ever made on this. The first time I watched it, it was mind-blowing. It's really good. Choose It or Lose It by two Scandinavian dudes. I don't know. I forgot the names. Okay. So why is this actually important? This is not just something to joke about, or it's not just eye candy. It's actually super important to add those kind of things, because in real life you actually have a lot of senses to figure out the world around you, and in a game you only have two senses. If you don't have a haptic feedback from a gamepad, for example, you only have visual and the audio feedback, and this is the only way the game actually communicates with the player. And the feedback loop is super important, and this is what a lot of game jam games that we play after the jam completely ignore. And for example, in the phone, they really do a good job nowadays. When you have a phone and you want to type there, it shows the letter you put in there or the character. It vibrates, and it even makes, you have a good feedback loop. And a game just should be the same thing. For everything that's important, you want to make sure that the player actually comprehends this. And you also have to kind of go overboard with this. You don't want to add a lot of things so the player can actually see what's going on. Basically, every state change in the game, you have to make sure that the player sees this, even in the peripheral vision, or even if it's not on the screen. You have to make sure that the player realizes something just happened. And you just kind of have to spend 3 days of the jam just making those things work. Or animation is something I forgot. I call it wiggles and wobbles. I just usually make a timeline animation and make stuff wiggle. It's so cool. It's so easy to. I think the term the animators use is squeeze and stretch or something. Just make stuff squeeze and stretch. It's so good. And all those kind of things. But yeah, don't
No, just that.
don't ignore
I'll just
this.
add
It's
it a
super
bit on
important.
top as well. Yeah, on top of that, don't forget to clean up your UI. Remove all the blueprint strings before packaging, and ideally display your game controls at screen at all times. That's actually very relevant to game jams, because almost nobody will read your forum game instruction post. Like, nobody will read that. Have your controls visible. It's like a very common thing. And not relevant to 4.18, but and if you work on the previous engine versions, don't forget to bake your lighting in your levels before packaging. It'll increase your performance insanely and remove the ugly text in the red text in the corner of your screen. Do that.
Those little bits help.
Okay, next. Oh yeah, the difficulty curve. This happens in all games. Games are generally way too difficult. And for example, say you make a level, you make a game with 20 levels, the best levels in the history of level design, and then you give it out to your player, and they can't beat the first level, and then they quit. And on top of they're just thinking that the game sucks, you also made 19 levels that nobody's ever going to play. So you have to adjust the difficulty curve. This is something that's also you can do in the last couple of days. Once you have all the mechanics done, work on the level design stuff. But also, just a disclaimer before we look at the second graph, you need playtesters. I think there's no substitute for playtesting. You are just way too close to your game. You know all the mechanics already. You know how to beat a level before you actually build a level. So you're actually way too close to your game to judge how difficult a game is. So it doesn't matter who you can bring in, your parents, your children, friends, neighbors, hobos off the street, or people from Discord just ask for screen sharing playthroughs. There's no substitute, and you have to do it pretty much in every game. Okay, the second graph, this is kind of what you want to create. You want to create a game that always has the right difficulty for the player skill. So if you look at the x-axis is the player skill, y-axis is challenge or difficulty. And game jam games usually fall into category 1. where it's just way too difficult, and then player quit way too early. The second category is not so common, but if you have way too much content for your mechanics, we just make hundreds of levels and they're not fun to play, and then just player quit mid. Just don't waste time making too many levels if they're not fun, or if they're not challenging, or if there's nothing to show. Actually, just you have better time to spend elsewhere. So the ideal way of designing a game, which is super hard by the way, is to keep the player always in the flow channel. And two good games to look at are Portal, which is a masterclass in this. It just designed the whole game so the player in the flow channel. Another game would be Super Meat Boy, for example. And the way they achieved this is they always introduce game mechanics in isolation. They never bombard the player with new stuff. So they teach, and then they ask the player to beat a challenge, basically. So they teach a mechanic, then in the next level, they ask the player to beat the level using what they learned. And then only then, when the player showed that they understood the mechanic, only then they introduce a second mechanic in isolation, test the player on this mechanic, and only then they combine those two mechanics. So this is an easy way to actually make a game, if it's applicable for you, if you have a level structure and those kind of things. But again, even if you do this, you need playtesters. Game will break anyway. If you don't have playtesters, no amount of planning and designing levels carefully, it will break. Okay, that's it.
There you go.
Next slide.
There you go. Now it's coming to the last days of a game jam. And now you're going to need to pick up on mistakes and something that needs to be removed from your game, even if you really don't want a part of it. One of those things is the bloom and lens flares. Like, try to avoid overusing flares. And in fact, control your camera exposure settings yourself, especially if you have a dark and light areas in your levels. Just make sure that you actually control your camera exposure with post-processed boxes, or even just a static control, so it doesn't switch from light and dark all the time. And really avoid the flares and everything. It might look good to you. It might look good, especially when you're a new guy. But every time you look at it, it just looks infuriating. It's annoying. Like, the only person who gets away with it is Michael Bay. That's it. He's the only one. No one else is allowed. Like, skip his thing. Next slide. And that's another thing. Add checkpoints to your game. The general rule of thumb is if your level is longer than 2 or 3 minutes, you must have a checkpoint. Otherwise, 90% of players will quit it, like, before you even finish it. It doesn't even matter if your game is hard or not. It's just the point that if people keep dying at any point and they have to restart the game from start, they won't bother. Like, it's like a game design 101. The checkpoints must be there always at all times. And the final thing, this is very relatable to artists, but it's not exclusive to artists, is that during the last moments of your game jam, is pretty much all the art that can be added into the game is already done. No matter what you come up with, chances are coders are bug fixing and polishing the game. They won't add it in. So the most effective way you could spend your time is creating the promo art, especially for a forum post, social media, or even better if you want to use the game later for HI or game job. Like, we do it for every single game. I don't think we ever skip the promo art, and I think this is one of the most vital components to get viewership for your game. Do a promo art. It doesn't have to be outstanding, but add something. Add some banner text. Add screenshots of your game. Even better, add the video gameplay of your game. But do that. It's definitely gonna make your whole experience of a game jam way better, and even more, you have something to look back after you complete it and look back a few years after. Like, best advice I can give you. And I think that's it. I think the last slide is just links and documentation that you provided for people who want to know more about and the sources of where we're dragging this stuff out. But other than that, that's the presentation.
And are you all okay with us sharing? We've had a few people ask if they can have this slide deck, and so would you mind if I posted it somewhere?
Yeah, we also have another document that we can share, which is where idea, writing down ideas.
Yeah.
You can share all that stuff.
Okay.
You can also hit us up on Discord and ask questions if you want.
That I'm sure folks will have all kinds of questions for you, but we don't really have time for a whole lot of Q&A. I just wanted to mention that, again, thank you both for coming on. Obviously, each group and team is going to have their own approaches to game jams, so this is what has worked for you all in the past, and most of these tips are applicable to a large number of teams, but not everybody. And it certainly depends on the style of game that you're making. And so for those that don't know or are just jumping on board again, the Epic MegaJam actually starts this Thursday. We're going to do an Unreal Engine stream. Chance and I will be chatting about some of the rules, our sponsors, and we'll be announcing the theme at the end of the live stream on Thursday. And you'll have a week to go through and get your game jam on. So I'll toss a link in the chat for our survey. And let us know how we did, what you think, what kind of topics you'd like to see in the future. And again, thank you both for joining us. It was super helpful, I hope, to a lot of the folks out there. So,
My pleasure.
Yeah,
All
thanks
right.
for having us.
Thanks, and I'm sure we'll see you around on Thursday. Bye, guys.
Right.
Yep.
Bye.